he hits him again now. Rayon Fowler into the outside wall.
He's going to pass nearly 3 cars down that front straightaway, and he's going to get them all done with. What amazing.
Lee to the inside goes Logan Cloudman is going to touch in. Pit press sideways. What a save.
Looks to the outside as Trunkett goes off. De Jong into second place.
Going for the switchback. Oh, pinpoint driving.
It's Howling down to the inside.
Trying this contact though.
Slide left to the racetrack. Chris Renner drives it back down underneath, and he takes that second spot right back. Joker goes to Garrett Lowe.
Garrett Lowe should take victory with all that contact.
He's going to try and make the move around the outside the Parabolka. That's not going to work, but he's going to try and get the cut back here. Get the run out the Parabolka. That's beautifully done there. Michael Schubert, there's a little bit of door banging as well.
Hello and welcome to SimSpeed TV and welcome to Road America. Throughout its history, this circuit has played host to just about every form of road racing that the United States has. Champ Car, IndyCar, sports cars, and even NASCAR. But today, it's playing host to the Oceanic Sim Racing Formula 3 Championship. We're at round 9 here at Road America with these fantastic open-wheel Dallara Formula 3 cars. I'm David Haynes. Joining me right now with the qualifying is Jay Kennedy. And Jay, I think this is a circuit that's going to give some very interesting racing in these cars. We've got a lot of long straights, and these are cars where the slipstream will definitely play an effect. So I don't think anyone will really be able to break away from the pack.
Yeah, hello everyone. I agree 100%. I think the racing we're going to see will be a lot closer than whatever we see in qualifying. The draft is going to be so crucial. We saw last week, even with the short straights at Alton Park, how close the field was together just using that draft. So it's really going to come down to tyre management, pitting at the right time, and being able to use the cold tyres and still find pace in the car, which a lot of people struggled with last week.
Exactly. So in qualifying right now, 7 minutes remain, and we're watching Aaron Lee. He got second place in last week's race. Good result. He's been there or thereabouts all season long. He's in third right now in qualifying, just 1.5 tenths away from pole sitter Scott Newton. And you look, there's quite a few names in that top 10 who could still spring a surprise and a good lap in what's the last third of qualifying.
Yeah, 100%. There's still, but pretty much anyone in that top 8 or 9 cars could spring out and find a second or so. It could come down to just having a couple of teammates to help you draft, and you could find that Thomas Lee absolutely misses the apex there, and that will ruin that lap. But a very, very easy track to find time in regards to using draft, but a very, very easy track to push too hard, as we just saw Aaron Lee do there.
Yeah, exactly. A 6.5 kilometer circuit, so it's a pretty long lap, and you see even our fastest pole time is nearly 2 minutes. So what looks like, a gap of a second and seems like a lot, it's really not that much as a fraction of the lap time around here. Finding 1.5 tenths around a lap as long as this is really not too tricky. I'm watching Tim Delisle in second place right now, and not someone we've seen in this series a whole lot, so he's come and he's making waves really quickly.
Yeah, he is, as he just runs a little bit wide at turn 5, and yeah, a name that we sort of saw pop up, and we both asked ourselves, where have you come from, Tim? What's your story? Because he's doing a great job with some really, really good pace. Scott Newton as well. No surprise to see him having pace in an open wheeler, but Tim Delisle's definitely surprised both you and I, as right on cue. Something else we'll see quite a lot is the car bottoming out. Very, very easy to spin as well.
Yeah, bit of a bumpy circuit, some aggressive curbs, particularly we see there in the exit of that's turn 5 with James McKee, and especially exit of Canada corner as well. And then through here again, James McKee riding those curbs, getting a bit of a twitch, and he's not going to find the 3 tenths he needs for pole on that lap.
Go to Reese Keane next, another driver who's done pretty well, pretty consistent throughout this series. He's just aborting his lap right at the last second to practice a pit entry. Of course, during these races, the drivers do have to make a compulsory pit stop, so practicing your pit entry is pretty crucial. A lot of drivers don't do a lot of pit entry practices. We just see Adam Briggs jump up to 5th on his flying lap. A good lap from him. Trevor Foster on screen now. We'll see what he can do. Currently sitting in 8th position. He last week had some really, really intense battles, so he'll probably be hoping for a little bit less of an entertaining night like he had last week.
Yeah, and as you mentioned last week, we know at least Cameron Dance picked up a 15-second pit lane hold for exceeding the speed limit on the entrance. Hadn't practiced his pit entry well enough, so that's something to look out for. Definitely practicing your pit entry, not a bad idea. And joining us in the commentary booth as well to bring the race, we've got the one, the only Reese Gardner. How you doing?
Yeah, not bad. Yourself, David? This is something that I've been really looking forward to, this particular round of the Oceanic Sim Racing Formula 3 Championship. Road America, a circuit that basically provides the antithesis of these cars, because these are downforce producing low-level open wheelers, so you got to take all of that downforce off for a track like Road America.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of, see that with these F3 cars in that sort of Macau spec, where they can really trim out the front wings and the rear wings, rely on diffuser and the mechanical grip of the car. And I'm sure they won't be taking out all of the downforce, because there's still some fast corners around here, like this kink right here, and particularly the carousel.
Yeah, exactly. Those corners, very important to get right in the context of a lap around here, and especially when following someone, as I am noticing at the moment, Warren Pickering having to make way for Mitch McLeod. You can't run too close together in this qualifying spec, because especially through turns like this, the carousel, all of that front grip just washes away.
Yeah, you find yourself with some understeer through a long corner like that, you're in for a lot of frustration. Though Pickering might get advantage of some slipstream along the back stretch. Trevor Forster also completing a lap, because the kink absolutely flat out in these cars. It's one long straight from the exit of the carousel towards Canada Corner, which I think is somewhere where we will see a lot of passing.
Yeah, of course, Canada Corner, one of those corners in all of motorsport that really offers up an overtaking opportunity, but it's a bit more difficult than it seems. That turn, I've always found it's a bit faster than I think, as Mitch McLeod just goes straight into the wall coming out of the last turn, just losing it over that exit curb, which is incredibly inviting.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of people out there pushing really hard at what's going to be their final lap. There's not time to finish a lap and start another one in the session, so everyone just trying to get the absolute everything out of their final lap, move themselves up the order. And one of those drivers, Tim Delisle, who is just 1/10 away from pole position, and what an interesting pole position that would be. But I don't think, it gets blocked a little bit.
Oh no.
I think this might be his first start in this series, so to start it on pole would be definitely a grand entrance.
Yeah, certainly would. Riding on the nose cam at the moment on the broadcast as he goes up the run to the start-finish line. Hopefully for him, he's got enough fuel to go around at least one more time. That's a 56.157 for him, and that is actually going to give him pole by 7 thousandths.
And he pulls over. He's not going to do another lap. He's going to hope that that is enough. Aaron Lee's not going to improve it on this lap. That's an off-track that invalidates his lap, as well as not being the fastest way through that very tricky Canada corner. He might get time to start another if he has the fuel, and if he feels the tyres underneath him. He's not going to. He's going to practice his pit entry. So Tim Delisle, right in the last minutes, grabbing pole position by the slimmest of margins over Scott Newton.
Awesome stuff to see. Great action in this qualifying session as we come up to the very end. That's 2, that's 1, that's no seconds left. The clock is now at 0. For Guy Leach on screen at the moment, this is where he's going to have to deliver. He currently sits in 10th position in the standings. Great view here from the rear wing, so close to the front wing, sorry. Very close to the ground, showing you what kinds of forces these drivers are dealing with in the sim. See how Guy Leach goes through these last couple of corners. Flat out through here, just barely. Be very careful through that turn, and then at the late apex for the last corner. Guy Leach, will he be able to improve? Well, he's obviously wanting to stay out. He's missed the pit exit there. Waiting for the lap time to show up on the board. 1 minute 57.087. So close to improving, but not quite.
It's definitely worth finishing that lap, though. Maybe just not pulling the last sector together. CMR teams, James McKee, still out there on a lap. Coming through the kink now, absolutely flat out. An easy flat out, I must say. I reckon they could almost go too wide through there in race conditions. We'll have to see. Reese Keane also still out there. DPR Racing have always had a strong presence in this series, and again, they've got at least 2 or 3 cars out there tonight.
Yeah, DPR, and couple of other teams that we've seen emerge, particularly in this Formula 3 series. They really seem to love the car, and their drivers are showing that they have the results that they want, like Adam Briggs and Reese Keane here, both in the top 10. Keane improves, actually, by just under a tenth. He remains 7th, though. Oh, McKee going straight to 3rd. Great job from him. Great lap right at the end.
Yeah, indeed. Shows that there's still some life in that track out there. Track temperatures stayed pretty constant all session long, but it is partly cloudy in the afternoon, which means that if there was a bit of cloud cover that came over, really could have cooled the track off. So you see some of that stuff there, partly cloudy sky, the weather, 1% humidity. Air temp looks nice. Track temp 34 degrees. That's about right, I reckon, Reese.
Yeah, I think so. It seems like reasonable temperatures for the middle of Wisconsin at this time of year. So it's going to be reasonably what the drivers will be expecting for this one. Qualifying over, the grid has been set. Tim Delisle on pole. Scott Newton joining him on row 1. James McKee and Aaron Lee follow them up with Chris Owen and Adam Briggs behind them. Reese Keane, Trevor Forster, 7th and 8th there, and the top 10 rounded out by Cam Dance and Guy Leach.
11th place is Alex McKellar, 12th is Sam Dobby, 13th Jamie McKnight, 14th Warren Pickering, 15th is Craig Newell, 16th is Scott Harvey, 17th will go to Aaron Balkwill, 18th is Simon Black, 19th John Nicolaife, and 20th is Derek Mobb.
Ben Coleman lining up in 21st with Vincent Skilbeck alongside him. Evolution Racing Team boss Brenton O'Brien in 23rd with Casey Atkinson joining him on the 12th row. Coming up in 25th position, we got Alex Court and Chris Barnes alongside Ash Lear and Steve Denby there with Jason Fewens and Stephen Varga from Redback rounding out the top 30.
Big grid tonight, that's good. 31st is Hayden Benefield, 32nd Kyle Stokes, 33rd Mitchell McLeod, 34th Marty Hansen, 35th Hayden Dodman, and we turned some practice laps, but I don't think Shane Van Gisbergen will be coming to the grid. But nonetheless, that's still more than 30 cars, and I'd suggest that 15 would be enough for a good race. This is going to be great to watch. 20 laps, mandatory pit stop.
Yep, certainly. We love the racing here in the OSR Formula 3 Championship. The drivers just waiting with engines idling on the grid. I believe it might be the longer gridding period for this particular one. We still have a few grid spots waiting to be filled down one side of the grid, but the vast majority of the cars out there and ready to go. It's all about the run to that first corner here at Road America, and the drivers have to be careful getting these things off the line, especially if they're near the back of the grid, because the starting grid here actually is uphill, and it's just at the crest of this enormous hill, so getting the car off the line here, very difficult. Most of the racing here at Road America actually has rolling starts, so the drivers do have to be careful. Gridding period over, and the lights are up. We're going to wait for the green flag to drop. And it is away. Good start there from Tim Delisle. A little bit of a run on Scott Newton, who immediately moves over to the inside to protect himself from the advances of James McKee. Drivers fanning out behind them, but it's a very long run to turn 1 here, David. And it looks like the front is managing to get through there cleanly. Oh no, just as I speak, who is that? That is very dangerous. Oh my goodness. Big wreck there. Quite a few cars involved. I think I just jinxed the entire field, David. What happened there?
Well, obviously the cold tires in these cars absolutely lethal on the start. Chris Owens checked up on the exit of turn 1, being clipped unfortunately by Adam Briggs, and then the stationary car of Chris Owens was just not avoided by the big pack behind. Chris Owens clipped that inside wall, come to a stop on the circuit, cars go on each side, and then gets lifted up in the air, and there's more carnage even further down. You see 5 cars off the circuit there. Racing continues though, still green flag conditions, but that's cost quite a few of our runners.
Yeah, it certainly has. Well, Aaron Lee is currently pursuing James McKee through the carousel right now. Delisle has actually managed to gap the field quite nicely in the midst of all of that carnage, taking advantage of the situation. And McKee under immense threat here from Aaron Lee. Look at the run that he's got out of the kink, and he has well and truly got the inside for Canada Corner. That is a textbook Road America overtake right there.
Deep on the brakes too means he tracks all the way out to the exit. You look further back where everyone's still just about single file, and the top order staying the same. Still Tim Delisle leads from Scott Newton. They're too wide back here, coming out onto the main straight. I reckon James McKee will have a chance to get back at Aaron Lee.
Yeah, definitely think so. James McKee, best chance on the entire track to get back at Aaron Lee. Just not drawing up in time to make the move into turn one. I think Lee might be running a bit less downforce there.
Absolutely possible. Tim Delisle's got a bit clear, but by less than a second. So you see Jamie McKnight comes into the pits. Maybe he picked up some damage. Maybe he'll get that fixed. Further back, Adam Briggs, he always runs well, tries to stay out of trouble, and he's going to go to the inside, though, down the second straight to try and defend from Trevor Forster. But it's a freight train on the outside as someone else also comes through as well. So they're too wide. Cam Dance trying to go around the outside into turn 5. I think he's nearly got it done. Cam loves going too wide in these cars.
He absolutely loves it. Managed to go for an entire lap or so with Aaron Lee and Interlagos. Look, oh, Cam, oh my God, boy, Jesus. That's crazy, going through that section of the circuit too wide. And Dance losing it on the inside there, trying to pass Briggs. Fortunately, the other guys are having good situational awareness there and moving to try and avoid that. Brendan O'Brien took very evasive action. Oh,
So here comes
coming.
of that, what's happened. So Cam Dance tried to hang it around the outside there. He's just closed off towards the inside, tried to switch it back to the inside for the left-hander, but I think that move was a bit too late, bit too deep on the brakes, and when he's turned it in, the rear has come around on him. We're looking at what's happened to Vincent Skilbeck, who looped it around a little bit by himself. So that's 2 replays for you, because there's plenty going on.
Yeah, certainly. Not much going on up the front for Tim Delisle. He is well and truly alone. So we're currently looking at Sam Doby and Guy Leach at the end of the top 10, and Simon Black, likes of Adam Briggs actually in the pit. So that's very interesting.
Don't know if that's any problem for Briggs or if he's decided the traffic is just too crazy. He'll come in early, get those tyres changed, suffer through the cold tyres, and then get back out there. But 9th through to 16th, that's this ridiculous pack we're looking at here. Simon Black right in the middle of it, John Nicolay behind him. In front, Craig Newell, Warren Pickering, Alex McKellar, and here's Guy Leach and Sam Doby. So it's very, very close. Like we suggested, the slipstream would make it. Does Doby look to the inside of turn 5? No.
No.
Too wide behind there, and that's Warren Pickering trying to defend.
Yes, indeed. That is a very big battle pack there. Simon Black with the triple draft almost as Pickering chases Newell. These guys are battling for the last position in the top 10. Ash Lear, though, and Brenton O'Brien for 15th and 16th there. Alex Court as well. Insane the amount of grip that those cars have through that particular corner. And that is a car around.
Simon Black. Yeah,
Oh,
you
no.
can tell from the black car that Simon Black is racing, and he's just looped it around. Is that by himself? Because the curb on the exit there, we've said it, it can bottom out these cars, turn them into a little bit of an ice skate. Is that what he's done? Or just on the throttle, hasn't even hit the curb, but he hasn't hit the wall, so that's crucial for his race.
Yeah, certainly it's best to remain without damage here. The slightest bit of aero damage can put paid to your straight line speed if you've decided to go with any. Right on board with Brenton O'Brien as he chases Alex Court through the final sector of the circuit. These guys still have a pit stop to think about, so they need to make sure that they remain in as optimum a position as they possibly can. O'Brien with the run on court. He's going defensive as Alex. So now Brenton O'Brien's going to have to try around the outside, and look who's coming back at them in the background.
Yeah, Ashley still following along. He can pick and choose which way he wants to go. He'll still get a slipstream. O'Brien backs out of it around the outside. I'd say that's sensible. He's going to try and get a better exit. Maybe try and set up an exit through turn 3 at the bottom of the hill here. Another opportunity for a slipstream is caught. And I think it takes maybe an earlier apex. O'Brien will get another run at him. And in front of them, I think John Nikolaev's going a little bit slowly. They're going to catch him as well. So 3 wide between the trees. My goodness, everyone survives. And Ash Lear's right there as well. Court still holds on. O'Brien hasn't found a way through yet.
Oh, well, we'll see what happens at this particular corner. Alex Court later on the brakes, trying to maintain around the outside, but on the marbles, he might pull a dance here and try and remain on the inside. No, he yields to Brenton O'Brien, goes around the outside. So now Alex Court into the clutches of Ash Lear. If he doesn't get onto it mentally, he is going to have troubles as Alex Court.
And Jason Fewens having a quick look at that. He had issues there. I think that was turn 5. Another very tricky corner. It's difficult to brake for downhill. It's difficult to turn in for, and it's difficult to get the throttle down. He's locked up the rears on entry there, this Fewens. It's unfortunate for him.
And he's in the wall once again, is Fewens. So yet more problems there for Jason. Unfortunate, but we look back at the end of the top 10. Fusion Sim Racing's Warren Pickering, we're riding on board with. Coming through the last turn here. He seems to have been okay there, but Brenton O'Brien, definitely not. Just viewing him, he's had a bit of an incident of his own. Instant replay here.
We'll have a look at that. What has he done? Was it defending from Alex Court, or was it by himself? Again, these cars looking very, very tricky in low downforce.
Yeah, they certainly are. Just the slightest misapplication of brakes or throttle and you're done, as we see Alex McKellar going for an overtake at turn 2. Nicely through on Craig Newell there.
Here comes the Jaws music. Here comes Craig Newell. He gets the inside. McKellar is not going to defend too hard, and I think that's clever. Side by side. Oh, deep on the brakes around the outside. Not going to work for McKellar this time. Alex Court, I think, in the background there. He's also looking for some of this John Nikolaev.
Yes.
As I said, lots of DPR racing cars out there for me to confuse.
Yeah, absolutely. Nikolaev briefly had a whiff of this battle, but seems like McKellar has just tried to gap him as much as he can, so can have another go at Mr. Newell. Meanwhile, up at the front, it is about as uneventful as you can possibly think. Scott Newton trailing Tim Delisle by quite a fair margin, and seems that the top 5 seem rather comfortable on their own here.
I'll be the optimist here. Scott Newton closed Tim Delisle by 4/10 last lap, and it's only a second and a half. Anything could happen through the pit stops. It's not over yet, but it's not the slipstream fest we were maybe hoping for. We have to look deeper in the pack for that, and that's Craig Newell and Alex McKellar. I think McKellar gets a better run out of the final corner, but opts to take his pit stop now. That's an interesting strategy. Normally, a lot of drivers opt for about halfway through the race, maybe half distance or later. McKellar going for earlier. And is this Cam Dance on Ash Lear? Indeed it is. Lear still to the inside. They're both closing a DPR car. What will happen? Dare they go 3 wide into the first corner? No, of course not. But Lear lets Dance go. Dance gets a poor exit, and Alex Court is still leading this pack.
Yep, this is still a very tight pack as we ride on board with Mitch McLeod. Him and Lear are teammates, so they won't want to get into much contact with each other. Alex McKellar down off the Jackson, out of the pits meanwhile. So we'll have to see about that. Dance, though, trying his best for a move. Oh, no! DPR car is around. Poor Alex Court. It's a real shame, leading that battle, and now he's lost 4 position.
It's a really, really tough braking zone. Like I say, someone's around in the background there behind Dance as well.
it's
Ashley
Leah.
Leah. And there's damage to the rear wing, maybe the suspension as well. We're seeing just how hard these cars are to hold onto. Here comes your replay, Rick.
Yeah, and he did that all on his own, David. That's a real shame. Just getting over the curb and the car slides out. Massive damage to the front and the rear of the car. Real shame for Ash.
When we looked at the car after it happened, it didn't look so bad, but you see that replay, there's a lot of force side on with the wall. That'll damage the suspension front and rear. Looking at the lead though, because like I said could maybe happen, Newton's closed it down a little bit to Tim Delisle, and I have to say 1.2 seconds might be the range where he can just feel some of the draft. Closed it down 1/10 on the last lap. On his way to setting the fastest lap of the race did Scott Newton. Hayden Benefield, the younger of the brothers, is having some issues towards the back of the field.
Yeah. Not having the best race is Benefield, and we're staying with the replay because Ashley Lear seems to have had yet more problems. You can see the extent of the damage of the suspension, and he's made it even worse there. Spectacular crash on the run up to Canada Corner, I think that is. Goodness me, and he's gone straight back to the pits there. I think his night's done.
Yeah, he was in a rush to bring that thing back to the pit lane, and of course it was crabbing all sorts. So not easy to keep it going in a straight line. The grass has been his undoing, but his teammate Mitchell McLeod battling with Simon Black, who's on a bit of a recovery drive after his spin, earlier. They're going to go too wide, or will McLeod yield? McLeod does in fact yield, so Simon Black moves himself up into 13th position.
As the gap at the front has stretched, we've just heard, to over 2 seconds, so Tim Delisle doing well there. I think that might have been a strategic move by McLeod to slot in behind Black. Oh, as I speak, he's just spun again. My goodness. Seems like no one... Oh, my goodness, Kyle Stokes right behind him as well has spun as well. What on earth is going on here?
Oh, this is Mario Kart. There's banana peels out there, and I don't know. I can't say, but I think there was an issue on this lap for Scott Newton. He lost that time to the lead. Aaron Lee really closed up, nearly into that slipstream. It's just beyond a second for Aaron Lee. He'll be wishing he was maybe 2/10 closer. He shifts up into 6th gear down what's the longest straight on the circuit, and he can't quite close up. Scott Newton's just got the pace on Aaron Lee.
Indeed he has, so whatever problem Scott Newton has had, he will have to make sure that he doesn't do it again, because the moment he does, Aaron Lee is going to be right there ready to pounce.
Here's a replay. Mitchell McLeod once again doing whatever it takes to get on camera, even though we said we wouldn't the other week. Canada Corner, in too hot, out very, very wide, and then looped it around on the gravel. Unfortunate, and I think he's come into the pits after that. So maybe deciding now's a time as good as any to try and get some new tyres. No one wants to stay on the circuit. It's John Nicolais as well having the same issue. But here is a battle. Warren Pickering being passed by Craig Newell. This is live pictures.
Bumper to bumper there, coming out of that turn. Warren Pickering not wanting to let this go too lightly. But Craig Newell managing to get through on the inside into the braking zone, and seems to have had good traction too.
Yep, so Pickering through for the moment. This is your battle, 9th and 10th. And Craig Newell's now up 6 spots, Warren Pickering up 4. Good results to be had from just keeping it on the black stuff this week.
Yeah, definitely seems that way. If you can play nice with the car, if you can keep it under control, the results will come effectively by themselves. Just seems to be a lot of uncharacteristic mistakes being made this week by a lot of experienced drivers, which I found interesting. Pickering, though, late on the brakes, as the gap at the front is now under 1 second. What happened to Tim Delisle there?
He's gone and lost just about a second on that lap to Scott Newton, as from 5th place Reese Keane comes into the pits. So that's an interesting strategy call from that DPR driver, but Scott Newton just getting himself within a second of Tim Delisle. The top 3 now within 2.5 seconds. It's just over a second between Delisle and Newton, and then another second between Newton and Lee. But you can see them all in one picture there. And as we approach half distance, that's not bad to have those 3 just within striking distance of each other.
Yes, indeed. I've just seen what the reason was for Tim Delisle's gap closing. He had to jump on the brakes to avoid a spin out of Canada Corner. Just went in there a bit too hot a couple of laps ago. But he is still maintaining a good lead there from Scott Newton. And the DPR car going into the pits, I think that's the first that we're seeing of these mid-race phase pit stops. Reese Keane just weaving to get a bit of heat and pressure into those tyres. 6.5 second pit stop time, which is reasonable. Another car around, that's Simon Black having more issues. Getting past there. Oh my goodness, every second shot we go now, it's a car having to recover from being beached, it seems.
Yeah, precisely. The top 10 still running smoothly, but outside of that, proving very, very difficult. This is a great battle though. Warren Pickering in the slipstream of Craig Newell, who passed him earlier. Pickering closing at a massive rate, hits the rev limiter. He's got no more gear in the top of 6th gear, and he carries as much speed as possible through Canada Corner. This will be a good battle. We'll see, does one of them maybe decide to pit now? We're about to start the 10th lap of the race. That's about halfway.
Yeah, you'd think that both of them would decide to pit at the same time because, I'll rephrase that. If Newell pits, Warren should follow him in. If he stays behind, which he obviously isn't. Great run down the front straight for Mr. Pickering, and he is through before they even get to the braking zone.
Yeah, well done, and then a little bit wide for Craig Newell. So Warren Pickering gets that back. For now, not forever. And Aaron Lee's closer to Scott Newton as well, I'm seeing on my timing screen. So that top 3, that's one to watch later in the race for sure. Aaron Lee's not giving up on grabbing 2nd place, and I'd say that it's not out of the realms of possibility for any of these 3 to grab the win. Anything can and will happen to just about anyone, as we see once again.
Yeah, Steve Denby with issues there. Warren Pickering, though, under more attack here from Craig Newell. Seems like Pickering's best section of the circuit is down the front straight. That's where his moves are made, but Newell is all over the back of him around the rest of the circuit.
Yep, fantastic battle this is. And seeing Reese Keane had pitted from in front of them, that's elevated these guys to 8th and 9th. Their pace out there is not bad right now, so these might be... Pickering uses all the available track, but manages to keep it together.
Meanwhile, 2nd and 3rd. Yeah, 2nd and 3rd closing up massively. Aaron Lee going for the pits there. I think that's a very opportune time, actually, because he was getting very close to... He was getting very close to Newton, but I think this might offer Aaron Lee a bit of the jump that he needs as these guys are getting ever closer together. Warren Pickering and Craig Newell still fighting. Which one of them is going to go for the pits this time? Neither. So these guys, once again, looks like they're staying out longer.
Guy Leach has also jumped for the pit lane. Craig Newell with a big run on Pickering. He'll definitely get there before the first turn. And again, smart driving from Pickering. He decides it's not quite worth defending, but he will carry as much speed as he can on the outside. Short down here into turn 3, try and come back at Craig Newell. I think sensible driving, but close racing.
Look at the exit from Pickering. That's really good. I think that might have been a mistake there from Newell. Side by side under the bridge, and Pickering with the run of all runs. Can Newell come back at him in the braking zone? We'll see if Pickering decides to leave some room on the inside. He does, and Newell actually almost overshooting the corner. They're going to make contact, and both of them spinning round.
Oh, Cam Dance! No, huge. Pickering sort of spread across the track. It's caught out Cameron Dance, and he reverses. Has Cameron Dance made his pit stop? yet. He might not be out of this just yet. Get a replay, of course, of what happened here. So Cam Dance is closing in on those two, Pickering and Newell. And I think maybe Newell's fired it down to the inside a bit too hard. Pickering's made contact and then rolls backwards to where Cam Dance was going. Cam Dance makes contact, loses his front, and reverses back up the track.
Pickering, I think, he was trying to go for the over-under there, but unfortunately Newell was a bit too far to the left that time, so both of those drivers, unfortunately, making mistakes in that battle, as we see Newton and McKee now in the pits. Tim Delisle staying out.
Aaron Lee, who'd made his pit stop, had to make his way through some of these cars that hadn't pitted yet. Might have cost him a bit of time to Scott Newton, who he was very close with. So Aaron Lee comes through the final corner, puts the power down, and Scott Newton is just going up on the jacks. Of course, Newton will be right at the end of the pit lane. Is his service done? It is now. Newton will be rolling towards the exit of the pit lane. He's out. Yep, he's out into turn one. And he is just a little bit clear of Aaron Lee.
Yeah, definitely seems that way.
Big margin.
4 seconds. A 4-second margin there between second and third. So I think I may have been mistaken, and it was Newton who took the better strategy play there.
Yeah, similar pit stop times for both of them. It is just maybe the time out on the cold tyres and having to work through traffic that cost Aaron Lee. So he's got some catching up to do. He's got the warm tyres now. You see that gap's already come down half a second. Scott Newton has to be quite careful on those cold tyres. No tyre warmers for this car. They're very treacherous on the first lap out of the pits.
Indeed they are. Drivers have to be very, very careful. Warren Pickering and Craig Newell came out of the pits almost side by side, but then I saw Warren Pickering take the pit speed limiter off for a second before they got to the line. So I don't know if there's going to be a penalty there for Mr. Pickering, or if I was mistaken in what I saw, but that get more difficulties for Mr. Pickering and the number 18 car. He's actually got a bit of a pack behind him. Craig Newell battling with Hayden Benefield on the track at the moment. And have a look at Brenton O'Brien here on Casey Atkinson. Almost getting it done. And Pickering is around. What's happened to Warren Pickering? He's back in the pits.
Damage on that car. We'll get a look at what he's done, what the incident was. He's battling pretty hard. This is down into turn 5. What does he do? Is it on the exit?
It's on the inside. He loses it on the inside, David. That's a real shame to see. Hit the grass and round he went.
Not the hardest of hits, but probably definitely damaged the suspension there. Come back. Tim Delisle's the only car out there that hasn't pitted yet. He's still putting in good lap time, so I think now is his time to push. Cameron Dance, after that incident we saw before, lost his nose. He's back out there, getting past Brenton O'Brien. Both of them are on their outlap. So, TCL Esports and Evolution Racing Team, Cam Dance is leading that right now. O'Brien will have a chance with the slipstream to maybe come back at him though.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there, as that's Craig Newell coming out of the pits. Seems like he's taking another tour through there, in for a second stop. So, obviously, something has gone awry for him somewhere. But, these guys still battling very hard. We're looking at John Nicolaf there, letting Simon Black go. Just finished it out of the pits. Side by side up to turn 1, Alex Court and Scott Harvey. Harvey has just gotten through. We continue to take a look at Alex Court, who's got a bit of a battle pack forming behind him.
Yeah, exactly. All the pit stops are done, and this middle pack battle is lighting up once again. Cameron Dance, Casey Atkinson, Brenton O'Brien, Simon Black, John Nicolaf, all separated by just a couple of seconds. Plenty up for grabs, and then just up the road was that battle we were seeing Sam Doby and Guy Leach. So all happening between about 8th and 14th place right now.
There's a car spun. Oh no, there's been a big incident. Hayden Benefield spinning, and he's taken Simon Black out there.
Again, another replay of what's occurred here. You've described it. We're watching Simon Black now and what it's like from his on-board perspective. He was in that battle we were just talking about. He's coming through the hurry downs, and it's the next corner where he saw the problem was. Does it look like from his perspective? Hayden Benefield spun around. It's a rejoin across the circuit right in front of Simon Black. I don't think that's going to be looked at very nicely. That's a very, very sloppy way to spin the car around. Probably should have gone the other way through the outfield, not across the racing circuit.
Yeah, that probably would have been a better idea there, but nonetheless, it's happened now, and just getting a look at another replay of what exactly put Hayden Benefield in that position to start with. Yeah, he shouldn't have done that. Definitely not. Should have gone to the left.
Facing the wrong way, he would have had a view of those cars coming as well. We look further up though. This is that battle 8th and 9th. Once again, can't separate these two for quite some laps. Guy Leach is leading right now, but look how close Dobie is.
Yeah, these guys have actually swapped positions since they crossed the timing line last.
The leader, Tim Delisle, is pitting now as well. The only car who hadn't pitted yet. So he's going to hope to come out clear of Scott Newton in second place. And I think that is looking pretty likely, barring any troubles with that pit stop for Delisle.
Yeah, definitely seems that way. We're continuing to look at Leach and Dobie as they go around the back end of the circuit. Tim Delisle just coming up to his pit stall now and coming to a stop. And Newton has actually crested the start-finish straight hill as goodness, Sam Dobie almost getting it done there, but it's on for the lead. It is well and truly on for the lead. They're going to draw up side by side almost as they come into turn one. That late pit stop for Tim Delisle, I think, has been his undoing.
Newton's got the warmed up tyres. If Tim Delisle pushes too hard here, he might go for a spin, might have an incident. He just needs to stay in the slipstream of Scott Newton for this lap. As we saw last race, it was very, very easy to have an issue on cold tyres. Delisle closes up just a little bit, but a master stroke with the strategy of Scott Newton to get clear of Aaron Lee and steal the race lead away from Tim Delisle.
Yeah, very good stuff, but now we have got a true battle for the lead on at the moment. Tim Delisle's going to need another lap or so for his tyres to get up to temperature and up to pressure, but we'll see what he's capable of then. We've seen his pace since qualifying. We've seen his pace when he is he's basically dominated the first 3 quarters of this race. So Scott Newton, I think, should be watching those rear mirrors warily.
Those asymmetrical mirrors as well. Once you notice it, the left-hand one is taller than the right-hand one.
I can't unsee that
over the
now.
AirPod. Yeah, and exactly, every time you see this car, you'll notice that.
Oh no, you've ruined it for me, David. You've ruined it for me. Oh god, I've just noticed that, and it's the only thing I can see now.
It's okay, don't listen to me when I tell you that the mirrors are also asymmetrical on the Ford GT road car and the GTE car. Not in height, but the driver's side one is mounted further ahead. Anyway, that's just... Oh, I'm sorry for ruining everything. I'm the worst kind of person, but not ruining this battle is Tim Delisle, who's still absolutely within that slipstream range. There's 4 tenths out of the final corner, 3 tenths now. He's just got that little bit of closing speed, but I'm not sure he'll get there in time for turn 1. We'll just have to wait his time. He's not as bold on the brakes as Scott Newton either.
8 kilometers an hour faster down the straight.
Yeah, the slipstream worth that much. That's definitely something. Gets
Newton
a good
made a
run out of
mistake.
turn 3. It's Chris Bands. Helpfully gets out of the way of the leaders. I'm sure they'll appreciate that. And the leaders go side by side. Delisle's going to have to go around the outside into turn 5, Reese.
Yep, Newton made a mistake coming out of turn 2, so now he's got the inside here for the heavy braking zone. Side by side through here, they're going to give them room. Newton, a little bit of extra oversteer. That's put paid to his defense against that. Tim Delisle back into the lead of this race, and I think it will be well and truly his intention to not let it go again.
cat-like reflexes from Scott Newton to save that one. We've seen plenty of people come undone in that corner, and I thought that was nearly race done for Scott Newton, but he saved it. He's going to try and stick as close as he can through the carousel here, and then through the kink towards Canada corner. What has he got for straight line speed? What can he do to try and catch Tim Delisle this time?
This is going to be interesting between Delisle and Newton, because we could obviously see that Delisle had the outright pace, and the start that he got when the green flag fell certainly helped. All of these little things adding together for what is being a very good race for these top two guys, sitting on board the nose of Scott Newton, chasing down Delisle. Aaron Lee catching these guys as well, just coming out of the last turn himself. He's got the battle well and truly in his line of sight, so this could be a three-way battle for the top position here, David.
4 laps to go. Newton's closing in. They've got a lap car in front. It's the 76 car, Casey Atkinson. Hopefully that doesn't play any part in this battle. And Newton couldn't do anything into turn 1 that time. He's still close, but I feel like he doesn't gain as much in the slipstream as Tim Delisle does. Maybe just a little bit more downforce for Scott Newton. He's half a second back now. And Tim Delisle will be getting a little bit of slipstream off that 76 car I mentioned. Will it give him the racing line into turn 5? No, he won't. So off the racing line goes Tim Delisle to get through. Scott Newton will get held up a little bit. Can he dive to the inside here? If I was him, that's what he's got to do. He's got to stay with the slipstream of the leader.
Yeah, fortunately, Atkinson saw him coming there and left the room on the inside, but that has cost Scott Newton, I'd say, about half a second or so to Tim Delisle, now sitting 8/10 behind. It is recoverable in the draft and not too close behind him through carousel, so he'll have that front end grip that he needs. Great shot of the cars going through there.
Yeah, one of those corners that really lets them use their speed. So we ride on board with Scott Newton for just a second there, but he is now nearly 9/10 of a second behind Tim Delisle, who won't be getting all of that slipstream he needed. Look at that, riding it all the way up towards the top of 6th gear. He's still got a little bit more revs available to that, so he's not topping out in the slipstream there. But this is how Tim Delisle got away at the start of the race. He just needed 8/10 of a second. And then Scott Newton couldn't quite respond once he lost the slipstream. What's it like this time up the hill? Newton's not looking too far back though. It's Aaron Lee's charge has come to a little bit of a halt.
Yeah, certainly has. He's not drawn up to the back of these guys, but he does have a little bit of help coming from the lapped car of Atkinson. That might give Lee a bit of a draft, tiny bit of an advantage that he probably needs.
Precisely. Looking now, 7/10. It's not quite enough. It's battle 5th and 6th though. Reese Keane is just keeping Trevor Forster behind. This is one I've seen on my timing screen for several laps, and it's stayed in this order. It's only 3 laps to go for Trevor Forster to do anything to put himself in the top 5. And Reese Keane's looking just a little bit quicker in a straight line.
Yeah, Keane pitted on about lap 8 and Forster on about lap 12. So Forster on the newer tyres here, but Keane has managed to hold himself very well in this section of the race. Of course, only with 2 laps to go the next time round. He's probably thinking he's in the optimum position, but Forster looks to be fighting very, very hard.
Yeah, it's not done until it's done. We've seen that this whole race long, that 5th position doesn't mean you'll hold 5th position. It's very, very difficult out there, although the track has cooled just a couple degrees since the start of the race. We're watching backwards from your leader, Tim Delisle. Scott Newton still there, but not worrying him right now, not close enough to make a move. He'll have 2 laps to close that gap up, try and make a move. It's looking like advantage Tim Delisle.
Yeah, definitely seems that way at the moment. Tim Delisle crossing the line once again. Beautiful track here at Road America. Nice long run up to the start-finish line. Fastest lap of the race for Tim Delisle, 155.998. The gap between he and Scott Newton now 1.2 seconds.
First lap we've seen in the 1 minute 55s all race long, and Scott Newton just doesn't have an answer to that, unfortunately. The gap's 1.2 seconds. That's just too far for the slipstream to do anything for Scott Newton to bridge that gap. Aaron Lee also had a sloppy one, a 1 minute 57.2. He drops further back from Scott Newton. It was looking like a really promising battle for the top three. Well, Tim Delisle's put his foot down and put paid to that.
Yeah, definitely seems that way. In other news, Reese Keane and Trevor Forster, those guys have drawn a little further apart as well. They seem to actually be almost even with each other. Reese Keane has managed to hold off Trevor Forster nicely, 0.5 faster on the last lap, so possibly problems for Forster there.
Yeah, hard to say, but certainly we've been robbed of some of those battles we had in the field. It was so close in the mid-pack, it was getting close for the top three. Now things just spacing out as everyone's done their pit stops, everyone's warmed up their tyres, settled into their rhythm. It's not over until it's over though. That's certainly something that is always true in any sport. Motorsports, no exception.
No, certainly not. Tim Delisle going to come out for the second last time out of the final turn here and begin his last lap. Now, I want to check to see if Newton has gained it all here. It seems like he has not. That's another 10th drawn out from Scott Newton that Tim Delisle's been able to do. Side by side, Aaron Lee, and I believe that is Steve Denby there in 18th position. Been a very quiet race for quite a few people out here. The racing not been as close as we probably would have thought it was, but I guess once these guys get out into their little bubbles outside of aero interference, lack of grip, aero push, the cars definitely like to stay there, don't they?
Yeah, there's 6.5 kilometers of circuit to spread them out over, and the little incidents we've seen here and there from a bunch of the drivers, of course, just spread them further out. Though some of the battles are coming alive again on the final lap. I get another red box around Reese Keane and Trevor Forster. Guy Leach and Sam Doby, we were watching that one, but here for 15th, Stephen Varga and Jamie McKnight. Tough race for McKnight. He's had 2 pit stops. He doesn't want to finish in 16th place, so he goes to the inside, squeezes out Stephen Varga for 15th place, Reese.
Oh, they were so close to banging wheels there, which is a death warrant in these Formula 3 cars, but great move there from both of those guys. That's the kind of racing that we want to see. No contact, no silly moves, just pure hard racing. Looks like
one more lap, but your leader really doesn't have far to go at all. Tim Delisle's coming out of the final corner. Scott Newton's not close enough, and Aaron Lee's further back.
Yes, indeed. So Tim Delisle taking a dominant victory here in the Oceanic Sim Racing Formula 3 Championship at Road America. Fantastic run from Delisle. Fantastic run from Newton and Aaron Lee as well. Very nice job from him.
McKee and Reese Keane 4th and 5th were there the whole time. Trevor Forster 6th, can't do anything. And Adam Briggs 7th place, he's also there. Got lots of battles still happening on this last lap though, but I think Guy Leach is just far enough clear of Sam Doby. So I reckon McKnight and Varga, has McKnight gotten far enough away to be safe from that? These guys were just on the lead lap. They've still got a 1.5 minutes to go to get to the checkered flag.
Yeah, that's it. They'll be absolutely groaning in their helmets. Do we have to do this? Do we have to do this one more time? I thought the race was over and done with, but Jamie McKnight seems to have gotten the gap that he needs over Stephen Varga there. The gap continuing to climb as they go out of the carousel and through the kink, flat out, and the gap is over a second. I think McKnight has this, honestly.
Yeah, certainly he's charging back up through the field after having to take two runs through pit lane that cost him. So definitely a victim of those circumstances, not of a lack of car pace. And he's now pulled basically more than a second clear of Steven Varga. So for 15th place, I think McKnight will have that. To take nothing away from Steven Varga, who started in 30th place and is now going to grab 16th. So he's up 14 spots. Even if he didn't have the pace for McKnight, he's done very well, but Craig Newell is going to try and race into the line, won't get there. Good race from Varga, even if this last lap didn't look it.
Very good run there from Varga. That has to be one of the charges through the field that I've seen all season. Great stuff. Well, here are the unofficial results. Tim Delisle taking victory. Scott Newton behind him and Aaron Lee just over 4 seconds behind in third. McKee and Keane finishing fourth and fifth, with Forster, Briggs and Leach rounding out the top 8 here. In the top 10 completed by Sam Doby, Alex Keller.
11th place goes to Cam Dance. 12th is Brenton O'Brien. 13th is Alex Court. 14th, John Nicolay. 15th, Jamie McKnight, who we were just watching. 16th, Steven Varga does hold off 17th place Craig Newell, who's the last car on the lead lap. Grabbing 18th spot is Steve Denby. 19th goes to Casey Atkinson, and 20th is Vincent Skilbeck.
We're well and truly into the off-the-lead lap competitors here. Chris Barnes and Ben Coleman, along with Scott Harvey there. And we are seeing the first retirements and heavy damage getters in this one. Jason Fewens and Simon Black. Warren Pickering, big shame for him, running as high as 10th at one point. Hayden Benefield and Mitch McLeod, 2 more retirements. Ashley Lear and Derek Mobbs as well.
Yeah, nursing home retirees here. 31st, Kyle Stokes. 32nd, Chris Owen. Very unfortunate race for him. He had high hopes for this one. And then 33rd is Aaron Bolquill. Marty Hansen, Hayden Dodman, Shane Van Gisbergen, and John Gamaz, I think, not taking the start. So that just about rounds it up for the OSR F3 race.
Yep, certainly does. It was a fantastic night of watching these drivers wheel around once again, and we saw some very good displays of driving from some very skilled drivers in this community. Thank you very much for having me along, David. This was a fun one.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's always good fun in this series, even if the attrition rate was a little bit heavier here around Road America than what we thought we were going to get. But I think 3 rounds left in this championship. Those will be good ones to watch here every Thursday night on SimSpeed TV for that. Please subscribe, because we are so close to hitting 5,000 subscribers if we haven't already. It was 4,997 going into this broadcast. A great little milestone for us here at SimSpeed TV.
Yeah, certainly. And thank you very much for subscribing. Fantastic to see you all watching here. Up next on the schedule, we have got tomorrow the Australian Online Supercar Championship. That's the Snetterton 6060 over on the iRacing Esports Network. On Saturday, we've got the International Division of the Majors, the Daytona 500. That is absolutely incredible. Can't wait for that one. Monday, we've got Monday Night V8s once again at Snetterton. Next Wednesday, we've got Rallycross and Sprint Series Australasia on SimSpeed TV. You know you love that. Next week here in the OSR Formula 3 Championship, we're going to go to Sebring for 23 laps. So the drivers had a lot of bumpiness to work out in those cars. We can't wait to see it. I hope you can't either. Thank you very much for joining us here on SimSpeed TV for the OSR Formula 3 Championship. Bye for now.